Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year.
Yay, it's a new year. You survived New Year's Eve. If you're listening to this, you've made it into the new year, and New Year's Eve
Look
did
at
not
you
destroy
go.
you.
Yeah.
New
You
Year's
made
Eve
it.
can be rough. I've had some rough New Year's Eves, but not a lot of them. Usually New Year's Eves, like long ago, I made some poor decisions. But then New Year's Eve's going forward, I became an old man at a young age.
Yeah, you did.
And I'm like,
You're like,
oh my God, do I have to
stay
stay
up
up
till
till midnight?
You're ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new year. It's the first episode of new episode of a new year.
Yeah.
It is. And how exciting that you're here with us. Like, this is so much fun.
Oh, you're talking
You
to
made
them.
it. Yeah.
I was like, when you were looking at me, I was like, you're excited that I'm here with you?
I am excited you're here with me. I'd much rather do a podcast with you than by myself.
Yeah, that's true.
But no,
Yeah.
I'm literally thinking like you made it through 2022.
Yeah.
And you are here, and you're here. If you're listening to this, you probably want to grow. You probably like laughing and like our great content and our friends with us. But
I mean, you love how amazing we are. I mean,
well, what I really mean is if you're here, you probably want to grow your life. You want to expand your beliefs. You want to become more connected and more whole and more alive. And I just think it's beautiful. Like, you're here. You made it through last year.
Last year for me, and I don't know if it's like this for everybody else, it felt like it was a mixture between a massive dumpster fire and raining gold on my head all at the same time. And I'm like, oh, I'm so confused.
I wish you'd videotape that, because that's actually such a quotable. It's like a massive dumpster pile and raining gold on my head all at the same time.
It felt like that. I didn't know what to do with it. Do I love this? Do I hate this? I think it's very easy to go through an entire year and have such mixed emotions like that. You know?
Yeah. No, I feel like that accurately describes both of our years last year.
Yeah, totally. And so you guys are still here, and you probably have some similar emotions, and there's probably things going in this next year that you want to do better and different, and things that you want to forget about, things that you want to repair from 2022.
Well, I was just saying I'm thankful they're here. I was just saying it's beautiful that you're here with us. This year, let's go on a journey together of being messy and coming alive and learning how to be present together.
Yeah.
And good job wanting to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job. High five. Yeah. Take that. Air high five. Oh my gosh. That was pretty intense.
I'm intensely celebrating people.
With that said, real quick, you guys, we're going in the last week to sign up for Living Fully Alive. And we got a quick, 1.5 minute spot here for you. We want to share it from a precious woman named Lynette. Lynette has jumped into our life consulting masterclass since being in Living Fully Alive. She's a very powerful, loving woman, very caring. And I just love what she had to say about this. And so we just wanted to share her words with you as we get going into an episode where we're going to talk about really getting perspective on redefining what this year looks like for ourselves, who we want to be inside of this year. It's always a great way to start the year with like a vision casting episode. I just love the idea of that.
We're not doing New Year's resolutions. We're not going to tell you things that you have to do this year or become or make a list of performance, but we are going to inspire hope.
Ooh, get ready for some hope. And before we get going, here's Lynette.
Like, it's so hard to express everything that you feel from LFA and what that meant to you. So let me just share a few experiences. Like, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you feel so overwhelmed by circumstances that it keeps you awake going down rabbit trails, but then suddenly you have the keys to be able to speak to your little heart, to reaffirm your little one, your precious little one, you don't have to have all the answers right now. You're not alone. We're going to figure this out. We're together, and then be able to peacefully fall asleep. What? That is amazing breakthrough to be able to come into places of confrontation that you have never been able to face before and get just painted into a corner and have the freeze response, but now suddenly be able to have the presence of mind to be able to love the person with compassion, speak validation, and be courageous in your own voice. To be able to have your voice is amazing. To be able to have freedom, to have vulnerability in relationships and be loved in your vulnerability and in your ugly places and your snotty, cryy places is amazing. Oh, I just found my voice, y'all. Love you.
I absolutely love Lynette.
She's the cutest.
She's adorable.
And she has found her voice. She's adorable.
Yeah, really. And that's part of what we wanted to do with everything that we create, is helping people find their authentic voice. What is it that we really think, feel? How do we express ourselves in healthy ways? It's something that Abby and I have been fighting for years, constantly trying to figure out, how do I express myself well? Mm-hmm. And how do I not be a doormat? And how do I not dominate?
Yeah.
All at the same time.
Yeah, it's beautiful seeing people find their voices. It's also beautiful seeing people find their people. I think that's the thing I've loved most about our courses.
Yeah.
You do the immersion program, and we have so many people who found their best friend, who found their new community, whose entire life has changed. Because when you run after wholeness with people, you get so much farther.
Yeah. There's something about the camaraderie in life in general that allows us to actually run forward into who we were made to be. I mean, we're talking today about vision and catching vision. For me, part of my way that I've been able to continually get vision for life and walk out vision in life is the supportive nature of the people around me that I've continually gotten better and better at surrounding myself with, being vulnerable with, allowing them to invest in my life, speak into me, whether it's an encouragement or a challenge in my world, but inviting that into my life. And so that is super necessary for any of you who want to really start thriving inside of life. Get connected to something like Living Fully Alive, our immersion program, and jump into that with us. You can go to justinandabby.com. That's abi.com. If you guys want to sign up for that now, make it happen immediately. 1 week left. But with that said, I want to go back to talking about vision and community and connection and stuff real quick, because I sat here and I can't help but think, like, my vision is equal to the level of the people that I've allowed into my life. Like my expanding vision is equal to the level of my vulnerability and my connection with people. And one of the things that I got connected to years ago within the idea of vision, it wasn't just, oh, I want to have a voice and do a podcast and stuff like this. It was about, like, I want to be someone who's deeply connected to the people around me. And I want to connect to people who are connected to themselves and who are running after life. And I think that for me, that was such a core component in seeing an evolution of my vision come out, is definitely surrounding myself with people in that manner.
Yeah. Something that I've been thinking a lot about is how important being intentional is.
Yeah.
And not listen, people take what we say and they go overboard and it becomes religion, and then it kills their souls. If you do anything we talk about in extremism, it will kill you. But so you can be intentional, and then you can flip over to the side of, like, so crazy intentional.
Yeah.
That you are consumed by it and it chokes the life out of you. But the healthy balance of it is that you learn to purposefully look at where you're, like, what you want to see happen, who you want to become, you were like, I want to be connected to the people around me, and I want to be connected to people who are coming alive.
Yeah.
Like, that was something in your heart, and you put words to what it was in your heart, and you engaged that feeling.
And I even was like, I want it at all costs. And that didn't mean at the cost of running over people or something. But when I say at all costs, it means it was at the cost of facing the fear. Mm-hmm. The fear that comes with like, well, what if this doesn't work out? Or what if I look like a fool? Or what if people reject me along the way? Or there's all these like fear of people, fear of humanity that's inside of us. And I think that in order for us to actually walk out the vision we want to cast, we have to begin with even having vision for facing fear. And that was something that was super vital in my mid-20s, was when I was like, I want to be a person that's known for facing his fear.
Yeah.
I might not eradicate fear in my life, but I want to be someone who's known for facing it and conquering it and overcoming it at every phase.
Well, and what we're really talking about is you created a few North Stars.
Yeah.
So for you, facing your fear was a North Star that you had. So then when you
constantly aiming at that, no matter what situation I got into.
So when fear came up, you actually already had your answer. Oh, when they asked me to speak at this thing, I'm going to do it because I'm scared of that. When they ask me, when I feel terrified to let somebody into this pain, I'm going to do it because that's fear, and I'm going to run at that. That became like a life anthem. And it's really interesting. You don't have to come up with the best life anthems, and you don't have to try to strive to figure out like the most meaningful. I think if you're paying attention to your own intuition, if you're just connecting with yourself enough, there is something intuitively inside of you, a voice inside of you that will help you create intentions that will throw your life forward. Like I think there was a divine spark inside of you that said, run after your fears. Because I don't think you had the emotional intelligence to know, oh, I have a lot of fears. I don't think there was a way for you to have fully understood that fear really does destroy life momentum. I'm sure you understood it on some level.
No, I mean, it was a spiritual encounter for me. It was my connection to God and having that voice, that internal audible voice for me, confronting me. Like there was something about in my early 20s, me submitting to God and being like, and to me, the word submission was like, I'm allowing myself to humble myself and say like, I don't know how to do this on my own. I don't want to do this on my own. I want something that's bigger than me to be participating in this story with me. And it's been me consistently being like, I'm willing to be challenged, whether that's challenged in allowing myself to be loved by God, or it's challenged in the way of correction of like, hey, actually, you know, there's an issue here. This isn't to your benefit, Justin. This isn't benefiting the people around you. And that's something that I think that's that heart of submission, to be checking in with a friend, an eternally powerful friend who is very loving and involved. That concept of that connection led me to conversations where I'm all of a sudden hearing that internal whispering that says, hey, actually, kiddo, your life, you're living in fear, and fear is capping your ability to be who I designed you to be. And I was connected to the idea that there's a higher design than what I'm living out of. And I think for most people, they're not connected to the idea that there's a higher design. And if they're not living up to some higher design, if they are connected to it, there's a potential that they're in shame because they're like, well, I don't know what that is. And I think I'm failing. And I just didn't have shame about it. It was just like this invitation of like, Dad, I think you've created me for something so much more than what I'm aware of. And I'm just going to be available and willing to do whatever it is necessary to align with who I am and to come fully alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about, for me, there's two kinds of things I want to hit. You don't have to know who you're going to be. I can't tell you how many times people have been like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 5-year dream?
Yeah.
What are your dreams for your life? Where do you want to be? And that felt very overwhelming. Well, first of all, when you're in survival, you're like, my dream is just to make it another day.
Totally.
Like I used to be so mad at people. And I think
I think of parents like that too. They're like, I just want to make sure that my kids are like, I take care of them, get them out of bed, get them fed, and get them to school. Like it'll be a miracle if that happens. Like, it's seriously difficult stuff to do life.
Yeah, it is hard to do life. So when we talk about vision, it's not that you have to have a clear vision for who you want to be. I think that question can stress people out. Like, what am I going to do? What is my dream job? And it can also be fun. Like dreaming is fun, But it can also feel like it's full of pressure. You start to dream, then you're like, how am I going to make that happen? And then you have all of your hopeless triggers, like, I'm never going to be able to do this. And it can be really swirly. So there's a few things that I kind of keep for boundaries. One is, what is my internal leading towards? Like, the other day, somebody asked this question, like, what do you feel drawn to for next year? Not what's a resolution, just what's something you feel drawn to?
What'd you say? Ooh.
Well, it was so interesting because I was like, I instead of answering logically with all of the like logical things I have, I like tuned in and I was like, what do I feel connected to? And my intuition said that I want to start speaking again by the end of this year.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. I literally had this thought last night. I think it was last night. I was playing a scenario out in my head about speaking, and I'm like, I feel like there's a timing for, I swear to God, this is literally last night. And I was like, I think that there's a timing for Abby to start ramping up again and returning back to her roots, and that she's going to come alive in it. So the fact that you're saying that, and you've never told me that, crazy. I'm like, oh, that's bananas.
Well, it was so weird because I haven't thought about it once about speaking next year. That's not something I've been processing at all. For those of you who don't know, I stopped speaking when I was really sick, probably 3 or 4 years ago, because I couldn't handle traveling anymore. And I couldn't handle needing to be on, like when you're on stage, you can't just be like sitting up there moaning and crying about how horrible life is. And I was like, I don't want to rah about God while I am in the depths of survival. And then when I wasn't as sick, I still just felt this thing inside that was like, nah, I got to work some stuff out with me and God. Like, I want to work some of my pain out. And we're in the culture where everybody is showing their process while they're in it on Instagram. And there's beautiful things about that. It diffuses the mystery, so it makes it feel more relatable, like it is an everyday process.
But sometimes people come to conclusions in the middle of the pain.
Or you preach while you're in the pain, and that's not even where you'll land, and that's not even what you'll end up believing long term. And I felt like I don't want to bring people through the fire with me. I want to tell them about the fire after.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be fake. I was like, on some level, you have to have hope when you're speaking. Like, that's what we're doing. We're imparting some kind of hope to people.
Yeah.
If you're imparting hopelessness, you're a bad speaker.
Well,
and so I knew I don't want to have to impart hope. I want to be as hopeless as I want to be. I want to be as mad at God as I want to be. I want to be as frustrated as I am. I want to feel like life is shit. I want to be in Ecclesiastes. I want to be like, is there a freaking point to life? I don't know. And I've just felt like this internal wrestle, and there's been like this like thing inside. I haven't even wanted to speak. It hasn't even, I've been like, no, I just know this is not the right, that feels like pressure to me. It feels like needing to be someone other than who I am. And I have such a value for being authentic.
Yeah, I do too.
And so
it's a good place here with the podcast because there's a different, I don't know.
I still want people I don't want to hide. It's not like I'm trying to hide the process. I'll be as messy and real as people want on the journey. I just don't want to have to polish it.
Well, yeah. And I think that as a side note
I was never actually a polished speaker anyway, which is hysterical, but
no, people make videos of you, very angry Christian type people make videos of you that are really funny, making fun of how you talk. It's interesting because on that note, because we're going to get more into casting vision for your life, but I do want to talk about our life for a second. And I've been having thoughts on what is vision for me, because that's a big question coming up, because we're doing a lot of changes behind the scenes here and trying to decide on how we're going to transition with the connected life and everything, like what it's going to look like moving forward and stuff. Good things, but I'm trying to catch vision for me and my role and how I participate. And even the speaking thing came up. And I think that, we're a unique couple because, I'll just say this, we have the faith element, that's connected to Jesus for us that we have a dialogue about. And then there's a very normal, natural conversation that isn't so filled with Bible words and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very confusing thing for a lot of people because we don't fit inside a necessary box. Because when you come into our space, you go,
we're not necessarily in the church box and we're not necessarily in the non-church box.
Right. We live somewhere inside of the middle. And I think that there's a lot of people, different people that express their spirituality along with their not being within, say, the confines of a very specific faith institution. But for us, we have a very strong faith in Jesus and a very strong connection to normality. And my question for me, and I'm trying to get vision for, like, what does that look like? Because I don't really see a lot of that modeled because it feels like people want to put you in a category and you can't really stop people from putting you in categories.
Right.
But it's like, even when it comes to like, what kind of speaking events are we going to do? Like for me, I'm like, if I'm going to participate in speaking, maybe it won't be within the confines of faith institution. It may be in spaces that are outside of it that are still having dialogues about faith, but they're having dialogues about faith, life, all kinds of things. That is a well-rounded whole conversation. I don't know. But for me, that's something that feels confusing that I'm asking. And I'm just putting that out there because as we're talking about a vision casting podcast, I'm like, I still don't know what that looks like.
Well, this is good because this is what I was actually trying to say originally. There's two things that I do with vision so that to keep me moving forward and not discouraged or shame or whatever. And the first one is I listen to my intuition, which we got sidetracked on because it jumped into talking about us speaking. But so I was in that conversation. I was just listening to my intuition and my intuition was like, oh, I think this heart process, there's something mending in me that by the end of this year that I'll feel more. Because one of the things I've done is I'm like, I want the hole in my chest. I don't have a literal hole in my chest, but the amount of PTSD I've been working through, I want that hole to be filled up for it to feel safe for me to speak. That feels good. Like I don't want to have to be dealing with that at the same time. Now there might be sometimes there were times in the past where, I mean, I did speaking through all kinds of crazy things. So I'm not saying you need to wait till you're perfect for your dreams. What I am saying is knowing your own intuition. I can feel a divine timing inside. I can feel a divine timing. And I have known this is not the season for me to be speaking. This is a season for me to fill this hole in. This is a season for me to live and do normal things and come alive in a business environment and learn about that. Like there's so many things that I've known, but if you listen to your intuition, it will lead you. And then the second part is not figuring out how.
Yeah.
I can't figure out how. I'm not like, well, this is the plan. As soon as I'm ready to speak, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go tell this and this and this person, and then I'm going to start doing it. Like I already know. I don't know how anything's going to happen. None of my life has happened because I saw how it should happen and then was able to make a plan for that.
Yeah.
It's just not how it's just not true. So I have learned it's not my responsibility to carry the how.
Yeah.
I don't have to figure it out. Like, so I feel the intuition like, oh, maybe by the end of this year, I'll be wanting to speak again. I don't feel any rush to figure it out. I don't feel the need to make it happen. I think a lot of people have that divine intuition and then they like strive to make it happen.
I think the intuition.
Or there's people, sorry.
No, go ahead. I thought you were done there.
Or there's people who have divine intuition and then they're just like, maybe that'll happen and they don't do anything. Yeah. And I think the healthiest approach is somewhere in the middle where you're loosely holding, like surrender. Me and Pizza use this definition a lot. Surrender is not that you let go of a desire, but you let go of the need for the desire to happen in order for you to be fulfilled and happy.
Yeah.
And so surrender looks like I feel happy and content in my life now. I do feel pulled towards speaking being something I care about again. I don't necessarily think it'll be my whole life, but that I'll care about it again. I also feel like this is still not the right timing, but this is like the amp up. I kind of think like oftentimes I get like a few months where something is like building up inside of me and the desire grows often so that I have enough desire to beat the fear.
Yeah.
Like the desire growing process of something most people think is a cruel joke because as the desire grows, they just want the fulfillment of the desire. Like if you're like, I want a kid, like I want a kid, and you want a kid right then, instead of like the process of getting pregnant and then the process of pregnancy. All of that takes a long time. Pregnancy is a great example. By the time you are ready to give birth, you have such a desire to get that baby out of your body that you are willing to face the pain of childbirth. That's like real. Every mom I know by 9 months,
they're like, I'm ready to be done with this. I know I've heard it every time.
Oh my gosh, get it out. I do
not blame them.
And like a month before that, they're like, oh, I'm nervous about it. But then all of a sudden their fear diminishes because their desire is so great.
Yeah.
And so I like the desire building process of dreams. And so like, I'm like, yeah, I'll probably slowly be processing about speaking. I said it out loud in front of people. So that began a process for me. I think it's really important to share vision.
Yeah.
But then I think no part of me went to, how do I make this happen? I just thought I'll sit back. I'll be aware. It's like an intention. So I'll process it a little bit. I won't just hide it under a bushel.
Mm-hmm.
But I also am not trying to make it happen.
Yeah. That divine intuition that we're hit with, it becomes an invitation to say yes, really. Yeah. It's just like, will you posture yourself with a yes?
Yeah. And it's really just about like what you're saying, posture, a heart posture.
Yeah. So when I feel a yes inside of me, I'm like, all right, I'm willing. The yes comes with willingness. I'm willing to face a fear. I'm willing to take action steps that feel like they pop up on my radar. It's like, I felt like there was an invitation to make these video podcasts this year, and we're moving towards it slower than what I thought we would because of everything that's been happening. But it's something that I'm going to keep saying on here as I've purchased equipment and things like that, and like getting teams together to work on stuff. I'm like, okay, if this doesn't happen, I don't know why it won't have happened, but I know that I'll have started out with a yes and taking each action step, even when it was like, there's a part of me that doesn't want to do any of that.
Totally.
But I'm like, I feel the divine invitation and I'm saying yes. And then, so there's this thing inside of us as we're getting vision. Like I remember when we first got married, we got a lot of vision for who we wanted to become. That's been working itself out for 15 years and it's still working itself out. Like it doesn't have an end in sight of working itself out. We're going to still have this conversation 5 years from now and be like, 20 years ago, we started this.
Yeah. We said we wanted to face our fears. We said we wanted to become like love. We said that we wanted to learn the lessons of love. All of those things became North Stars. And I was thinking about, we met Paul Young years ago, about 15 years ago now. And I thought he was one of the most phenomenal humans I had met. He felt like what I imagined God would be like. So humble, so loving, so non-judgmental, so connected. And I remember, he had the story of being broken over, like he went through a massive thing in his life where everything broke. And it was an 11-year process for him to come back to himself. And then he wrote The Shack from the journey of that 11-year process.
Yeah.
And I remember when I met him having this thing of like, I know that the type of person you are came from the type of breaking you went through.
Right.
I know that that's the only way you become.
Yeah.
The way that you did.
You mean when you saw him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was like, the way that you become love like this, the way that you become humility like this,
broken,
the way that you become open like this. Yeah. There's something.
Loss. You have to face the lies that you hold inside of yourself, face your shame inside of you, not be able to hide anymore behind performance. Like a lot has to get broken.
And I remember just praying like, oh God, I'd really like to become like that. I can't imagine how that could happen in my life, because he had an affair and I was like, I'm not going to have an affair on Justin. Not that I couldn't, I'm just saying, I just knew I wouldn't. And so, it's okay if you're out there and you've done that. I understand how it happens, and it definitely is very easy. Put me in the right situation, I'm sure it could happen. But, my point is, I knew that I didn't think that was going to be my broken spot. Right. And I didn't know how I would be able to be. And then it happened. My whole life broke all at once by 20 different things. I've never just explained the story on here, and I probably never will. But it happened on a deeper level than I ever fathomed could happen. And I remember this year thinking, I almost started getting mad at God. I was like, man, I shouldn't have prayed those prayers. I prayed those prayers, and that's why this happened. Mm-hmm. And I felt like annoyed, for a minute. And then all of a sudden I felt this feeling, and I was like, oh, no, I don't think that's what happened. I think that God knew what was going to happen in my life, not because he planned it, not because he wanted it, but because he saw it in advance. And he brought Paul Young into my story so that I could see
as a hope for redemption,
that there was
of what
hope,
could be.
that you could go through a breaking process and become beautiful, that you could go through a breaking process and become more of who you were made to be, that you could go through the fire and not actually be burned alive, but come out more of who you were supposed to be. And all of a sudden I saw just meeting him what was giving me vision. And I have held on to that for the whole time since my life fell apart and I went into PTSD. I held on to, this is the time. This is where I learned the lessons that Paul learned. This is how I become love. This is how I let go of judgment. This is how I become this version of me that I've always seen that I could be. Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes the vision of who we're meant to be comes through us meeting people. I know both me and you there's so many times where you've been like, what would Paul do in situations? Or you've actually called him to see because you saw somebody that gave you vision for who you wanted to be and you held on to that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what that is like for you? Because I'm just talking about ways that people can get stirred up about vision.
Yeah. I think that being able to see who we want to be in other people is such a big part of it. Right now I've been processing probably for about 2 years, but especially the last year, wanting to love the way Bob Goff does. He's another example. He's another fathering figure that I don't personally have a relationship with. We'd like to get him on the podcast here. I'm going to circle back through some of my contacts on that. If you have close contacts with Bob, let me know. But there's a lot of expressions when you read his books of love that I'm like, oh, I want to think in those dynamics. I want to become someone that express it because I'm, as much as I've pursued love, I'm still really effed up. I still have tons of judgments or tons of ways that I approach stuff that I'm like, that's crappy. I don't like that. That's not how I want to lead. That's not who I want to be. And it's not like I look in the mirror and I'm like, I hate myself for this. I just look in the mirror and I go,
there's not shame.
Yeah. I just go, oh, I know that there's an original design for you, Justin, that's higher than what you're living out of. And that this is a shadow of who you actually are. And there's this longing to get back to the truth of my being based on God's design for Justin and for humanity. And it's like, I catch someone like Bob Goff and I'm like, I want to think the way you think about resolution, about the way that you care for people, about the way that you confront people. There's something very confrontational about Bob Goff's love that never feels abusive or intense. It's like, I really appreciate someone like Jordan Peterson and I appreciate Bob Goff. And Jordan approaches stuff with a very aggressive slant at times that I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with the way that you're communicating yourself and something feels like it needs to be worked out inside of you. Whereas Bob sometimes has almost the same conversation without having the conversation that Jordan's having about love and the way that we show up to life. But he's doing it from a nature that's so much more kind and tender, and yet he's very effective. And I look at him and I go, I want to be effective like that man. And I think that we can have people in our lives that exude expressions of nature that bring more life to the world and bring more goodness and it without being passive. Like Bob is a very proactive person. His love is not passive and he is not a doormat, but he'll do things that allow people to be very destructive in their nature and he will see them through the lens of God's goodness and who they really are in God's eyes. And I just want to do that. And so all that to say, we can look at pieces of people's nature and go, I want to extract that out of their nature. Like that's part of gathering vision. And that's something that happened to me when I was younger. I've told this before, but funny enough, I would watch Tony Stark in Iron Man, and there was expressions of his nature that I'm like, I want to be Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Where he's like not scared of people who are in political powers being like, we want the Iron Man suit. And he's like, well, you can't have Iron Man. I am Iron Man. And he's like, done. Like, I don't care that you hate me or that you have a problem with me. I am doing what is right by what I believe is my compass that is pointing true north.
Yeah.
And things like that where I go, okay, what does it look like to have the ego strength inside of myself? Like the knowing that I am so not even right, but I'm so lovable that even if I'm wrong inside of this, I can go confidently before people and choose to take steps forward in following what I feel is the invitation on my life.
Yeah. Well, and I love this because this is one of the ways I've had a lot of vision in my life is I see something in someone that is different than me. Yeah. And I'm like, I want that. I want to become like that. And I try to not have like 30 all at the same time, because it's overwhelming. I'm not wanting to be constantly focused on what I'm not and what other people are.
I want to add something to the word becoming real quick, because I think that, even I was using the word becoming, but I think that it's not about what we become. It's about what is revealed. And I think that when we get poked with something that we see in someone else, that there's a potential that that's already something that exists inside of us that is waiting to be revealed. There's like a confidence in me that's waiting to be revealed. And I see something, I'm like, oh, that's actually who I am deep down inside. And I want to uncover that. And I want to go through the process of uncovering what is hiding this true nature.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's just thought that I was like, oh, this feels like we're saying.
Yeah.
But you said becoming.
I kind of like it because that's one of the ways that I have run towards vision. And I think a lot of times, the more I have vision for who I want to become, not just what do I want to have. And I think both are important. And we'll probably have a conversation maybe next week about like the practical, tangible ways we've done vision for like practical things like the jobs we wanted and the house we wanted. And there's a lot to learn how to have practical vision. But the thing that I think matters a lot to start with is who do you want to become?
Yeah.
Who is, and I pick people and then I find ways to learn how they think, So like there are several people that I see that I'm like, I love this about them. So I'm going to ask them questions about how they think about that thing. I'm going to be around them as much as possible. I'm going to listen. And even things like, so Bob Goff, you feel inspired by him, but you don't know him. But you've read his books. You've listened to his books. You've listened to his teachings online.
Follow him on Instagram. Watch what he posts about stuff, how he talks about things.
You're extracting vision, and then I see you practically try to implement it, which this is emotional intelligence to me, to hear how somebody processes something and then see how can I fit that into how I view the world? How can I fit that into how I show up? Oh, this person is really kind in these ways. Now I'm just noticing those moments where I'm not there yet, and not with shame. This is the beautiful thing. The more shame resilient you get, the more you can just acknowledge what's true. Like, oh, this person's really kind in confrontation. I was not kind in that confrontation. These are the moments where I can lean into being more like that. Oh, now I'm in the middle of confrontation and I'm thinking about how this person shows up so kind, and it's making me want to move towards that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, like, again, going back to, okay, where do I see it in other people? What are the aspects of who I want to become? Like, I started thinking about like emotional expressions, like even that's something that's so foundational, because like, if you can get like, oh, I want to have emotional intelligence first off. It was something that at a young age, I'm like, I just really want to have emotional intelligence. I don't know how to get it. Like I didn't come from an environment, in general where I came out of. I'm not just talking about my immediate family, my birth family or any of that. I'm talking about the environment altogether that I grew up in. There wasn't emotional intelligence readily available.
Yeah.
Probably one person that I saw that had a level of it that sparked the idea of emotional intelligence.
Really? Who was the one person?
It was Daniel's dad.
Oh,
my best friend Daniel that passed away.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
He was a counselor and a pastor, but we would sit down around his table, like on Sunday afternoons, and he would have conversations about people he worked with. He wouldn't give names, but he'd be like, I'm dealing with this situation and here's how we're working through it. And like, he would have an open dialogue and then sit and crunch on it. Like, oh, that's why they did that. Is that why that happened? And I was like fascinated, because I was like, if I can understand the way that humans are wired and understand how I'm wired, I can change me. I can help like change the world around me. And I also can have influence. Like I actually have always wanted influence, but not out of a power hungry ego thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I want to make a difference. So the idea was like, how do I make a difference in the world? Because I had that thing initially written inside of me. I want to make a difference.
Yeah.
But what does difference look like for me? And how is that expressed? And emotional intelligence felt like something. So anyways, I was like, I want emotional intelligence, but not only with emotional intelligence, like I want to be an expression of certain emotions. And so things that I didn't feel like I had good expressions of, like kindness. I've been like, I want to know kindness as an expression, because as an Enneagram 8, you come out of that space and you're very self-protective. And you know, early on, I was very kind, but passive. Like I was a doormat. Then I adopted, all right, protective mechanism of more aggressive. Well, I don't want to be aggressive either. And it's like, how is kindness powerful and not passive?
Right.
And I started asking those questions. And so I'm slowly evolving and getting this, like, and each of us we just take the little baby steps of like, I just want emotional intelligence. What does that lead to? And it sparks ideas. And you end up finding yourself 20 years down the road going like, oh, I'm learning how to be really kind now. And that is a foundation to love. And that is a foundation to all of this stuff, but it's going to work itself out over a while. But I told myself key things. I want to be kind. I want to become a patient person. Like I want that to be who I am expressing myself as. I want to be an understanding person, in all of it. And so I was getting vision for what I wanted. And then I had to be willing, going back to facing our fears, to face what I wasn't. Oh, I'm not being kind here. I'm not being patient with people. I'm not patient with myself. I'm not patient with other people. I'm not gentle. I'm not understanding. I am being very judgmental. I had to be like, part of, as you get vision for your life, you're going to have to look honestly at what you're not currently living out of.
Yeah.
Like the goal is to break the shame that you have over it so that you can actually become like evolve into that and have who you are revealed.
Yeah. And if you struggle with shame, get the Compassion Project. Because because I was literally like, how do we tell people in 5 minutes how to not have shame over what they're not? But we really do believe it doesn't mean anything about who you are. It's often, if you're not kind, it's probably because you weren't taught kindness.
Yeah.
Or if you're not kind, it's because you went through something really traumatic and needed to put protectors on. Like we really believe that areas that we don't show up the way we want to have to do with either pain or lack of teaching.
Right. Like conditioning.
Yeah. And so we really believe in, like, I have so much compassion. I see myself as messy. I'm very, very messy, but I have so much compassion on why I'm messy. And part of my shame resilience is like, yeah, it might take me a while to undo this, but I'll learn. I'll learn how to be kind. I'll learn how to be,
So part of going into this next year and getting vision for yourself is in a shame-free way, almost as a matter of fact, being able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, all right, it's time for me to be honest with myself. Mm-hmm. How do I show up in this world? How do I actually treat people around me?
Yeah.
How am I relating to fear? Okay. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it just simply is. I'm not always that kind.
Yeah.
I'm pretty harsh and judgmental in these areas with people.
Yeah. Or I'm really kind in these areas. And because most of the time we are so dualistic.
Well, we're very nuanced in how we express ourselves.
Yeah. Dualistic is the wrong word actually, but yeah, nuanced, which is there's so many ways that I'm kind. Like I would have described myself as kind, but then there's a lot of areas that I'm not.
Yeah.
Like when I am ordering food and I'm hangry.
Yes.
That is not my kind.
You don't want to be a Chipotle employee.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. It's very true. And so, but you're right, because the more I've been able to be like, yeah, I am just not this. I want to be around people like this. Like one of the things I heard you say, you've been really working on judgment for the last probably decade and a half.
Yeah.
And the other day you were talking about being around some people who just constantly are judging everyone and everything. And you're like, I don't know if I can be around this because I'm working so hard at breaking out of that mentality. It's really hard to hear it over and over and over again. Yeah. And so I see you being drawn towards kind people who are really loving. And I see you purposefully spending more time and energy there because you're wanting to support you don't have to figure out how to get yourself to kindness, but you can do the individual steps right in front of you. The next right steps, which is find other people that are living the way that you want, be around them, find out how they think. Notice when you're not doing that. Notice why you're not doing that with curiosity and not judgment.
Yeah.
Like, oh, why don't I want to be kind right now? And not, I'm bad because I don't want to be kind. Like curiosity without judgment gives you so much information. Oh, I'm trying to protect myself. Oh, I feel scared. Oh, I feel vulnerable. Those things actually can give you keys to grow. I
wanted to give a quick perspective on being honest with yourselves, like an example, like, and being nuanced inside of it, because like, it was very easy for me to go into my office and meet with a one-on-one client, and I can like immediately engage compassion, sympathy, non-judgment. And I'd be like, here's this person, they're totally human. All of their situation makes sense. And I like, my love would turn on no matter how messy, how crazy they were expressing themselves. I'd be like, yeah, but there's a little kid there and I can see this and like totally engage that. And then I could easily step out of that space and be like, you just like bopping around Reading, and all of a sudden I'm like,
somebody's driving really slow in front of you and you're like, what is wrong with that?
Totally. And or they act out in a certain way in public, and my judgment would, and I'd be like, why? And these are things that I had talked to myself often, like, why is my judgment free to have a reign of behavior here and dehumanize somebody inside of my head, and then I'm humanizing them over there? But I had to get honest with myself about that, because it'd be really easy to just hide in shame and just go, no, I'm so compassionate. Look at how compassionate I am to all these clients that I have. No, in my heart, when no one's watching, I'm having this come up, and it's not a self-abusing, like, you're dumb for this. It's like, yes, this is true. I need to face this.
Yeah.
This isn't in line with my vision.
Yeah. It's very liberating. Here, our souls want resonance. We want what is real to be real. So when we actually own something about ourselves, there's like a feeling of alignment that happens. It
eliminates craziness in our head, almost a sense of craziness.
So when you're like, no, I am both so compassionate and judgmental.
Yeah.
Being able to own that is so liberating for your own soul. And then, like you said, what you're aware of, you can transform. So then you can be in the place, oh, well, I'm really good at humanizing people in my office because they're right across from me and I'm hearing the human part. Okay. When I find myself judging somebody, I need to humanize them.
Yeah.
So I need to start imagining what got them here, what their story is, how they got here. And so you can actually like work it backwards.
Yeah.
Once you know what it is, to be able to be like, okay, how do I tap into, like, you can think through, what's the feeling in my body that I have when I'm feeling compassion on my clients? Okay, I need to tap into that feeling when I'm feeling the opposite in public or whatever.
I've asked this question of myself in trying to form vision. I know we're kind of bouncing around with stuff. We're kind of giving a bigger picture of what vision is for us and where we're starting at with this. But I've sat and I've thought to myself, what would I be like if I had never disconnected from unconditional love? If I never felt a sense of abandonment? If I actually believed
that I was fully loved.
That I was fully loved, accepted, cared for, that I was not alone in this world. Provision was available, because that's something that I observed in Jesus and what he was doing with his disciples, is he's really reconnecting them to the truth of their being and the truth of love. He's like, look, you're basically, I mean, I'm generalizing, but the conversations kept going back to, look, your Father provides for everything out here. You're going to be provided for. You're not alone. You're okay. watch me, watch the way I relate to the world. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He's going like, let me give you a perspective of your connection to your Creator and how close he is and intimate he is inside of your story and how he sees you and he's one with you. But I keep having these thoughts of like, okay, so if Justin is an eternal being and he's not in the temporal messiness of what is this time that is Earth, and he's back in eternity, fully surrounded by love, care, provision, and there's no question, no disparity or anything. What is he like? How is he showing up and operating with other people if he doesn't have to protect himself at all times from threats? Like, who is he? And those are questions that I've tried to get vision for. Excuse me. So as I'm elaborating in my head, oh, well, I wouldn't be on guard. My nervous system wouldn't be intense. I wouldn't be intense with this person. I wouldn't have to fight with this person because I'd know even if they're wrong and they made a mistake, I'm still going to get taken care of inside of it. But I'm asking those questions inside of me.
Yeah, I think that's really huge. Me and Pete actually talk about that in the Pathway to Freedom, like the healthiest version of ourselves, knowing what the person who's connected to love all the time looks like, helps us actually re-anchor into love, re-anchor into being who we want to be. We can often have our authentic self, and then we can get pulled out of that by protectors or pain or fear or so many things. And so when we actually learn to go back to, no, what would me fully loved look like? What would I be like right now if I felt at peace?
How would I communicate myself in this moment? How would I receive someone else inside of this moment? And I think that when it comes to getting vision, a great foundational starting point is this. It's getting vision for who I am, not formed out of my outside identity created from jobs or political affiliations that I'm connected to, or sexual identities, or all this other stuff that doesn't define who we are, but actually our true design. If I can get connected back to who I am patient, I am gentle, I am kind, I am whatever, like getting connected to that and then forming vision for what you do from who you are is a game changer, because all of a sudden the creative possibilities completely change for me when I'm connected into who I actually am, connected into love and care and provision. Then my dreams start expanding and who I draw to me in those dreams. Like, so my dreams for the output of my life, what I'm creating, if it's a plumbing business or it's a 501c3 to help people, it's like I am building an entire community around a different a more authentic expression of myself. And there's something beautiful about that. There's longevity in that. And there's a special type of creativity, I think, that comes out of that, because there's not the muddied, clouded up waters of, oh, I can't do this. People are going to take me down. They're going to come up against me. I'm going to have to build in all these protective mechanisms. Like, that stuff just isn't there. And so I think if you're looking for vision for what you want to do in the coming year and you haven't started with the who I am, it needs to start there. You can start it without that. That's fine. You may find yourself tearing things to pieces later on and tearing them all down. I mean, like when I say tearing them to pieces, like deconstructing everything that you've put together and rebuilding something based on what you find out who you are. Because when I find out, and this last I'll say, is when I find out who I really am, all of a sudden, maybe the thing that I long for completely changes. The dream that I want to create or participate in life. Because all of a sudden I go, oh, I mean, I think back about when I wanted to be an actor in the movies, right? You know, I went to film school, I did all that. But it was like, when I got down to dealing with my emotional stuff, it was like, oh, buried under all of this was a kid who wanted influence. And he wanted influence for this purpose. Well, I can have that without being in the movies, but like my brokenness that I was in, my state of being said, this is the ultimate dream.
Sure.
Because I didn't know who I was or what I really wanted.
Yeah. And it's okay. Honestly, like, even here's the truth. Whether or not you start with who you want to be or what you want to do, it's going to change. It's going to ebb and flow.
Totally.
And that doesn't mean that you did it wrong. It just means, like, as we progress, we progress.
Yeah.
Like, as we grow, it's the natural thing. So I want to give just a couple last things. one thing that I did is I set intentions about vision that I wanted to have, because often we won't live bigger than what we've seen.
Yeah.
And so I remember purposefully being like, I want a good marriage. So at any time I saw somebody that had a marriage that looked better than my parents, which was quite often, I would like ask them questions. I would like just be around them. I'd be around them to just feel what it felt like. Cause I was like, if I'm just in this environment, if I'm in this culture long enough, something about this will start to feel normal to me.
Yeah.
It will start to feel like goodness and connection can feel more normal than war and chaos. Or like I remember at a young age being like, I want to have vision for how many good things can happen in my life in my 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Because I could see I had this timeline that like haunted me all the time. And I was like, no, I want to have faith for how that my life is going to get better every decade. And so I purposefully,
rather than going backwards after you hit 30 or what.
Yeah. Like 30's the peak, and then it's all downhill from there. So I purposefully started when I was in my 20s, looking at people in their 40s and being like, what is great about their life? Looking for people in their 50s. What is so fun? How are they getting bigger? What influence is happening? Like, and recognize I have all these people that I gathered in my mind as evidence of, oh, breakthrough can happen in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yeah. Oh, you can actually see so much of who you're meant to be start to come into place in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. Oh, this is a time when, and I've used that, I've stored up that vision. Like that's like vision that I purposefully engaged in, because I knew I'm going to have to age my whole life and I want to have hope for every decade. And I was just thinking the other day, because I had this feeling of like, oh my gosh, am I already past the point for this thing? And then I literally had like 3 people's stories pop into my mind, because I was like, no, this person at this age did this, and this person at this age did this. And it's just helped me so much. Like you can gather vision for whatever area you're hopeless in, for whatever area you have lack in, you know, like if you're like, I want to learn how to have more joy. You can find people that are really happy and you can be around them.
Yeah.
And you can even like ask them how they think about life. Like, oh, well, when this hard thing happens, how do you process that? Or you're funny a lot. How do you you can actually engage. You can be in an atmosphere that helps transform you.
Well,
you can learn the process that helps transform you. And just being in a thing that is different than you. Like I know I was so serious for years. Being around people who could have fun was a different atmosphere that I had to learn to be comfortable in.
What you're talking about is shame-free curiosity. And it says, I don't have to be anything or do anything in this moment. I don't have to have already known this. I'm not bad that I don't know this. I'm just going to ask. And a lot of us, we learn from a young age that we should already know everything.
Yeah.
It's very common for people to be like, oh, the story that I got out of my childhood was I should have already understood this stuff. But that's part of facing fear, is like the fear of asking people and not feeling like a burden, because it's very easy to feel like a burden. But people love talking about themselves.
Totally.
And I don't even say that in a degrading way. It's just we love sharing who we are. And so become curious. You see something, ask, get involved. Be like she said, talked about just funny.
Be around
How
them.
are you funny? Like, how do you think about life? Like, how did you develop this? I want to know more. And just being around them and asking those questions.
And I never feel like I have to become like them.
Totally.
Ever. Like I'm never trying to become like I have a friend who's good at conflict. I wanted to be around them to see how they did conflict. But that doesn't mean I want to do conflict exactly like them.
Right.
I just wanted my vision to be expanded.
I have from it. Yeah.
I have a friend who has so much faith about business, and I'm not going to do business like them. I don't feel like my business will ever look the same way as theirs.
Yeah.
But I do feel like being around them inspires me to have more faith about business and more hope about business. So it's not the idea of changing yourself into other people. It's the idea of opening yourself up to different cultures and normalizing them around you so that you can feel good in that area. I want to I know we got to wrap up, but there's 2 things I want to hit. One of the worst things you can do with vision is have an unrealistic timeline.
Yep.
It will kill you. it will create shame. So I have given up on all timelines. Honestly, I tell people it often takes me a few years. Like I was thinking about one of the things I've been working on gathering vision for the last few years is redemption. I'm like, no, my life will be a story of redemption. And so looking for stories of redemption and feeding my soul with those. But I think often people are like, what's your word for this year? And I'm not really about that. I mean, do it if you want. I do whatever you want. Like I feel be free. For me, I never have a year where I like fully fulfill a word.
What do you mean by fulfill a word or your
like,
word for
there's if redemption was my word for 1 year, I'm like, I never see the thing I'm running after fully manifest in a year. That just doesn't happen for me. So I would much rather steward something, like turn on something, think about something for a few years. And what I've seen is when I plan, and we've had this, you're in your 40s. I'm headed there.
Yes.
We have seen a lot of things where we stirred up vision for something and it took maybe like 3 years before we started seeing it trickling in. Like we believe in sowing and reaping and we don't have a timeline on that. Like there's some things that might take 15 years to come into place. But if you don't lose hope and you don't give up and you're taking baby steps every year towards that, you will be in a completely different place in 15 years. So I would say years ago, I started engaging redemption as vision for my life.
Yeah.
And I still am chewing on that and engaging that and connecting to that. And so if you could just give up your timelines for who you need to be and when you need to be them by, like, I think when I'm 100, I'll still be like a freaking baby to God because he's, forever years old. And so I don't feel like I have to be done. I don't need to be a good person yet. I don't need to have everything figured out yet.
Yeah.
I don't need to have already become all of the right things yet. And whatever the lies are that you believe of why you think you should be farther ahead than you should, it kills you. It kills vision. We end up getting way more focused on who we're not than who we want to become. And we become what we're paying attention to. And so I don't want to be paying attention to all that. I want to acknowledge what I'm not, but I don't want to be focused and obsessing over what I'm not. I want to be like, yeah, there's still areas in my life that need redemption. And here are the areas that are engaging towards redemption. And here are the things that anyway.
So good.
So here are my 3 keys for vision. Trust your intuition.
Okay.
Trust your intuition and your grace, like not what you should be or where you should be at, but find that authentic voice inside of you. And it can leap out just by something you see, like Tony Stark in a movie. You can feel that intuition, that divine invitation. It can be from meeting somebody, like it was for me with Paul Young. Oh, I have vision for who I want to be. And if I go through the fire, I'm going to embrace it because look at how beautiful that is.
Yeah.
It can be something that is like just, you're on a walk and all of a sudden you feel this like, I need to face my fears,
Yeah.
But find your intuition. Don't worry about the how. Don't figure out how you're going to make something happen, how you're going to become the thing, how you're going to get to the end destination. You will spin and spin and spin and spin, and it won't ever be the way that you get there anyway. And the how creates so much hopelessness. If you just set it before you, you will find life helps you get there if you keep it as an intention and then let go of unrealistic timelines. Those are my 3 keys to vision.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's the invitation into experiencing life without the pressure of like crushing you on the way to it and causing you to give up. It's so good. Well,
if you are out there and you want vision for who you could become this year, I highly recommend doing Living Fully Alive because Pizzi says it's the Learn How to Be a Human course. Mm-hmm. Learn how to be a good human course. And so we're going to leave you with just a little moment about what it's like. We like you all.
It's been the thing that's gotten me through the past 4 months. And so I'm just so stoked. I have learned so much. I found my people, like my peeps here are amazing and I love them all to bits.
LFA has changed my life. And now I'm moving out of LFA the second time around, realizing that if I want to have community in my life outside of the LFA bubble, vulnerability is key. So thank you for changing my life.
What LFA has done is, especially with the homework, it's forced me to kind of like peek into that box and see what's in there. And then my heart started sharing with me, and I started validating my heart, and it felt like I could connect with my heart for the first time and be real.
As I've joined LFA in these short, 3 months, it has just been like tremendous growth to where I'm able to connect with my heart and speak it out. This course has helped me to realize like, it's okay. Like I'm in process. And as I lean into vulnerability, like that's truly my heart. I'm just so grateful that people can finally see the hard work. So thank you.
To be able to have your voice is amazing. To be able to have freedom, to have vulnerability in relationships and be loved in your vulnerability and in your ugly places and your snotty, cryy places is amazing. Oh, I just found my voice, y'all. Love you.
It's not just affecting us doing it, but I'm seeing it change our children. And I'm seeing it change generations. Like it's a generational shift.
Things are cracking into me and I'm changing. And this vulnerability, I realized this is the first time I've actually seen genuine, real ministry happen.
Oh.
And all it was me being broken.
I had talked to someone about LFA at that point. It was like, I can't tell you if it's worth it or not because I don't know yet. Like, I don't know that it is. It's a lot of money. And I just messaged him in the middle of this conversation where I was like, it's 100% worth it.
Through this whole process, you have allowed breakthrough to come into my life. And I've just felt God say, hey, you have purpose. And I've never felt that before.
The immersion program has been so beautiful because I'm seeing people's lives transformed every single call. For those of you who this is your first year doing LFA, I strongly recommend that you do it again because it's a great way to start off the year. If you guys can do the immersion program, it literally is worth every penny, just like Kelly was saying. The immersion program is so powerful because you get people who are on your team celebrating you and championing you. And I'm so thankful for you guys.
My husband and I were talking, and we were just talking about LFA and the time commitment and all the things about it. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I know it's so tiring for you. I know it's such a long day. He's like, no, babe, I want you to know, like, this is important to me because you've changed. Something's changed.
I have been so grateful for that gift to be able to love other people like Jesus. And it's just such an honor.
For people who don't know, this is actually my third round. So I was in the initial first group, your trial run, I guess.
Yep.
And so I've seen a tremendous growth in myself, specifically this last year, which I'm super proud of and excited about.
This is what it's like to sit down with people in their pain. This is it. Like when you're in pain, this is what it's like to come with your pain and to just sit with people and be with people in your pain and to show up and have pain, and people will sit with you in your pain. And that was one of the first spring things to me of like, it's okay to be in pain and to make room for it and not have to like rush out of it, and to just invite people in.
LFA was like vulnerability and all of that stuff wrapped in one. It was like all my prayers were answered through this course. Literally, if the only thing that I got out of this course was validating myself and learning how to validate myself, it would have been totally worth it.
For the first time, I actually trusted that opening up my heart with emotion would actually have healing. I want to do this. I want to help others. I'm on the journey of like, my journey of cancer will be a blessing through others. I know how to listen. I know how to validate people when they're in pain. And I just was like, and not many people do when they're in pain.
So true.
And what to say. And I'm like, I'm going to use that as like, that's going to be my future.
All right, everybody. So have a good one. Bye now.